and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am back from America, and we're here to talk all things NFL as Week 8 commenced last night. I am, as ever, your host, Andy, and I'm this week joined by a returning guest. But with me today is Buffalo Bills fan Charlie. Charlie, how are you?
Yeah, very well. I'm happier now that we got another win under our belts and started to settle down a little bit. But the best news that I've heard is that I think you're now a fully paid up member of Bills Mafia. Is this right, Andy?
Yes, I had a great time in the tailgate. I think the last time it came on, it was day of the game or the day before the game. Like Sky came on to preview week 8, and yeah, I mean that what an experience that was. I mean, it's got the whole experience. Met obviously the famous Kenny who does the mustard and ketchup thing. I met Elvis, who's another famous figure in the Buffalo Bills Mafia sort of tailgate experience. So got to see that. And anyone who saw my social media, my TikTok, do check out Ali Talks NFL. I got to see the likes of Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andrew Whitworth drink beer out of bowling balls and toot some horns afterwards. Saw pizzas being cooked on filing cabinets and food being cooked on cars, ironing boards, all sorts. So it was a long day. I was there from about 10:30 in the morning until the game started at 8. But it was so good and it absolutely flew by. I mean, shout out to David, who's come on the podcast before. He let me. I stayed at his house. He's a very good host, and she took me there and back to the game. We tailgated in his spot all day, so I got to play a bit of cornhole, obviously eat some food, and yeah, this thing a little bell where he rings it, and then people have to do shots. So yeah, I got the full experience. I even got to see one person jump off a table. I mean, it's banned from where we were, the lot we were in, but still got to see it. I think they did it sort of, without well security. It's like when you're younger, when you try and bomb in a swimming pool and the lifeguard's not looking. It felt a bit like that. The security man wasn't there. It was like straight to the table. We're jumping on it. But I mean, yeah, that was some experience. And of course, you go to a lot of Bills games and you know full well about the Bills Mafia tailgating experience.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like it. I don't think there's anything quite like it in any sport, to be honest. Certainly not in our soccer. There's nothing that compares. And I've been to many tailgates in the US, and I don't see anything close to what Bills Mafia tailgate really is. It's just a great weekend. I mean, I think you also got some Bills Buffalo food as well. So while you're in Buffalo, which is perhaps an underrated part of the Buffalo experience. It's a much cooler place than people perhaps would imagine, and people are really friendly. And even you as a Dolphins fan being able to walk in and be treated well and be welcomed. It's not like going to Philly or something like that, I guess. Some fan groups. People are really welcoming, and as you say, I've been to several games now, and I know quite a few people there, and I always am blown away by the experience. And even the area of Orchard Park around the stadium, if you walk around a little bit, you'll see houses that are decorated in Bills Zubaz paint. You'll see mailboxes done in Bills colors. You'll see Winnebagos direct just painted out in Bills colors. It's quite an experience, and yeah, something you don't forget. But I mean, how does it compare? I mean, you've been to more games than I have. You've been all over the US and been to I think all the stadiums now, or pretty much close to that. I mean, have you seen anything? Have you seen anything similar anywhere else?
I mean, if I'm honest, no. I mean, if I'm honest, I'm not done the most tailgating in the world because often it's been a case where you're on your own and yeah, you can
Yeah, you don't know
sort of
anybody.
yeah, and it's like yeah, sometimes I've been allowed to join in like tailgates. I mean, Cincinnati, I did that, other ones as well. But I found that especially when you do the only one, it's that sort of thing where everyone's got their own in jokes, everyone sort of knows each other, and you're sort of there. It's that as nice as people are when they do let you in. It's that thing of that that small talk and and stuff like that, and it's yeah, and I think as well someone who just doesn't drink as well, that probably doesn't add to the experience as much. But I want to say I did a Washington Commanders tailgate on Sunday just gone. That was really good. I've done I've walked past a few, so I've walked through the Philadelphia one. That was probably the only one that probably compares to it. I've done the LA SoFi Stadium tailgate, walked through that. Tried to find the Miami one, but I got completely lost trying to find my friends. But yeah, so I've not done many, but this is by far the craziest. And I think it's not even close. I mean, before then, I probably told you probably the Cincinnati one was probably the best I've been to, but I think having gone to this Bills Mafia tailgate. I think nothing will compare, as you say, to any sport. I mean, you know,
No.
we the news we get in the UK to tailgating is people meet in the pub for full English before the game. It's
Yeah.
not quite the
Just
same, but it's
It just isn't. And I mean, I love it. I was privileged to be able to take a couple of people last time. I was at the Bills Miami game earlier in the season, and I took a couple of Brits who had never been to see the Bills in person before, but were sort of long-standing Bills fans, and they just couldn't get over it. It was mind-blowing, and they had one of the best days of their lives. I mean, I think it's people are always really welcoming. It's very easy to meet people in Buffalo. I think people are always happy and they're kind of amazed that someone from England would have any interest in a team as small as the Bills. I mean, many people in the US don't even know where Buffalo is. So the fact that we have that interest is pretty incredible. In fact, actually, I've got a little story for you, which will I think maybe for your viewers will find interesting. Last time I was in Buffalo, and I flew from Chicago to Buffalo on a Friday night. And I always love flying to Buffalo on a Friday night because everyone on the plane is always Bills Mafia, right? So everyone's wearing Bills gear, everyone's going to the game, and as you're walking up the aisle of the plane, everyone's saying "Go Bills, go Bills, go Bills" as you're walking on the plane. And I sit down next to this lady and her daughter who were going to the lady was from Buffalo, lived in Chicago when she was taking her daughter for her first ever game. So we started getting chatting about the fact I was from England, the fact that we had a London Bills backers community here, and she was just blown away by this. And I showed her a picture of our pub in London where full of Bills fans. And she said, "Would you mind if I took a picture of your picture? There's a lady I'd love to send this to that would be fascinated by the fact there's a London Bills backers group." So I said, "Sure, of course." Had a nice chat and said goodbye once she was getting off the plane and enjoyed the game. I think nothing more of it. And then at baggage in Buffalo Airport, and this old lady, not the lady I was standing still on the plane, some other old lady comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, I hear you're from England and you're part of a backers community in London." I said, "Yeah. How do you know?" And she had the picture on her phone that I'd sent to this other lady from the plane. And she started asking me questions about it. Someone's in well into her 70s, if not older. And then she said, "Of course, it all started with my uncle, you realize. My uncle's Ralph Wilson, founder of the Bills in 1960. And
wow,
this was Ralph Wilson's niece, who was the aunt of the lady I was sat next to on the plane, and she was picking her up from the airport. And
wow,
this lady actually was a Bills executive for something like 20 years, a lady called Mary Owen. And it blew
incredible.
me away. That's how small a place the Buffalo is. You hear about a guy from England coming in and they rally to it.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I mean, it's I even met a guy, Nick, who
Yeah.
actually he told me a story about how he actually moved to Buffalo because of the Bills. I mean, he said he moved, I think 2011 he moved to Buffalo.
Yeah.
He got
Yeah.
engaged with his wife from the UK, but they got engaged in Buffalo. And yeah, he just moved up sticks, moved to Buffalo, and he works in Buffalo now. And it's incredible story because, as you say, it's not a big tourist destination. It's not in New York. It's not in Miami. It's not
Right.
it's not in
In
LA.
LA or
It's
something. Yeah.
not somewhere you think of. People who have these dreams. I certainly when I was young had a dream of living in America. No one ever. I don't think ever would have Buffalo as that place. But as you say, I was genuinely amazed how nice place it was because all I hear about is it's a small town. They're so only good because that's all they've got. They've got nothing else but the Bills. When you get there, I mean, the food is incredible. I went to Bar Bill. I
Yeah. Tell us
first
about the
review.
wings.
Yeah, the wings were incredible. I mean, I didn't have the blue cheese. I did try it, but I'm not the
Yeah.
biggest blue cheese fan. But I had the beef on weck as well.
That's one of my favorites. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really nice. And then got to I did many things. Dave drove me around. He showed me actually because he used to be a driver for FedEx. He showed me Josh Allen's house. He showed me Jim Kelly's house, Sean McDermott's old house, Brandon Bean's house. Got to see all that. Got to see the downtown itself. There's a few lakes and parks I went to. Lake Erie was one of them. Yeah, I thought it was really cool. And I said to Dave that Jenny, if I had met Dave somehow without being NFL fan, I met him. He'd take me to the Bills game. I'd not had any interest in the Bills. I didn't become a Bills fan because people were so nice. Everyone I met in that
Yeah.
tailgate was so nice, and from the city itself was beautiful. The food was great, and yeah, the atmosphere was great, and I had a really good time. And I think that it's definitely not as hard as maybe people would say to get there. It's literally like I think it was a 40-minute flight from Buffalo to Washington. and it was only about I can't think it was only about an hour flight from Philadelphia to Buffalo, which was only a 2 hour bus
Yeah.
away from New York. So I'm guessing you have to always change when you fly from Buffalo from the UK. But I think certainly if you're watching this podcast or listen to it and you're a Bills fan, or even just a fan who wants to experience Bills Mafia, then I don't think it's even that hard to get. I think it's definitely easier to get there than it would be to LA, for example. Probably direct flight, but I think quicker to get to Buffalo, and I think it's you
Without a
can
doubt.
you can mix in with going to see New York play New York Giants or Jets. You can mix in with maybe seeing the Commanders or Eagles play, and I think you can definitely do it pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of ways. It's only an hour flight from Chicago, an hour flight from New York, Washington, Charlotte, also good flights from Charlotte. Actually, one of the most main ways that Brits will do is they'll fly into Toronto, and then they'll just drive down. It's about 2.5 hours or so. You just cross the Peace Bridge and you're right there. You can just rent a car in Toronto. Actually, had a friend who actually flew via Iceland and then went into Hamilton, which is a bit closer than Toronto as well. So there's lots of different ways to get there. It's really not that far. And actually, if you find Buffalo Airport, it's a really nice little airport, and you're right in the city. So yeah, it's a really underrated place. And once you go, it kind of gets under your skin. And I just can't wait to go back.
I bet. I mean, I definitely want to go back. I said to Dave, definitely the plan is to go when the stadiums reopen. Definitely go watch Bills Dolphins, provided it's not around Christmas time. As long as it's like November, or September, October, then I'd love to go and do that game because that would be because obviously everyone who is a Dolphins fan, everyone sort of had a little banter, so it'd be quite nice to have that sort of friendly banter at the game itself. Buffalo Airport was one of maybe a bit of a PTSD for me because I did drop my AirPods in Buffalo Airport. Thankfully, they managed to be okay. Yeah, I can't get the top back on, but I can still charge them and use them and all that. But yeah, it was quite a nice airport. I mean, really easy to get through security. I don't know whether it was that Friday night where it was just quiet, but
It's always like that. It's always
yeah,
like that. It's a
really
quiet
quick.
little airport serving Niagara Falls as well, of course. But it's easy. It's really easy compared to a lot of American airports, which are you got a long TSA lines and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's not a bad trip at all. And I'm glad you got to experience it. As I said, it's really unique. And I get asked all the time, like, where's Buffalo? What's it like? And there's either preconceptions or no one knows anything about it. But having been there multiple times, I just love it, and it gets under your skin.
And I found a lot of stadium like it looked a bit from the outside. You know, like the Stoke City Stadium. I don't know whether you follow Stoke or follow football. Where, of course you do. You know the Stoke Stadium where you got the sort of there's like gaps after each side of the stadium. I found the Bills
Yep.
because most stadiums in America are all sort of it's all like that. There's no sort of gap between each stand. But I found with the Bill Stadium, that was the one I've seen where it's like that. And then obviously it
Yeah.
looks we go when you're from the outside, it looks like it's really small. But what I didn't realize literally until I was at the day of the game is that it actually goes underground the stadium. So the field, the sidelines, all the bottom few rows, certainly where I was as well.
Yeah.
They almost like 50 feet underground or something. It's
It feels
incredible.
big once you're in it, and
Yeah.
it sounded loud for the game that you were at. It sounded loud. Was it a good atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, Dave told me it was better for Miami. He told me, but
Miami was
also,
insane. I mean,
yeah,
but I think the Miami game was interesting because obviously Miami were coming into that game as probably the favorites for the Super Bowl at that point. They were absolutely murdering everybody, and Bills fans were really up for it. And I could even sense the tailgate at like 8:30 in the morning that people were really up for that game, and you could just sense there was a different vibe. Um, and by the time it was kickoff, people were just bouncing, and then of course the Bills got off to a good start and it just kept going and going. But the Miami game was one of the best atmospheres I've ever heard in any stadium ever. So,
yeah,
yeah,
I can imagine. I mean, for me, I'd probably say it's third in my list of apps. I think the only thing that beat it is literally Philadelphia a few days before that, Eagles Dolphins, and then number one still is Arrowhead Chiefs Raiders. That will never be
yeah,
top. But in terms of my seat, obviously, do go check out on our YouTube channel, on our Euro Trips YouTube channel. Do go and check out the vlog I did at the stadium. You can see a lot of tailgating stuff like Ryan Fitzpatrick drinking out of a bowling ball, and then you've got the game itself. And yeah, obviously, I was very lucky because I was originally in the gods, and then David had a friend who wasn't using a season ticket next to him, so I got to sit about 4 or 5 seats from the front behind the end zone. You know, only one touchdown was actually at our end, but seeing everything happen so close was really really cool, and that was cool. But the game
yeah.
itself, of course, the it was Thursday night football. It was a win for the Bills by 24 points to 18. Comfortable first half, but then the second half, you seem to allow the Bucks back into it, and there
Mm.
was a point right at the end where they could have, if Godwin used his head right, he could have easily caught flat. And they could have won the game with a Hail Mary. So for you, Charlie, win's a win. Not been the best few weeks for the Bills, but what was your take on the game and getting that win?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So obviously, it was Bills. Just putting that Jets game aside, which was a weird game, and they had three fantastic games against the Raiders, against the Commanders, and against the Dolphins, and then they have had three really rough games. And I think a lot of people think that the Jags game in London was basically because they traveled too late. They didn't get off to a warm start at all. And then there's one coach in the league that really knows how to attack the Bills. That's Brian Dable. So the Giants, you can explain that. And then they just absolutely messed the bed against the Patriots. And then people are starting to really worry, is this more of a trend? So I think there's a lot of really encouraging things on the offense to feel better about. The defense is beat up. I mean, we lost three of our best players in Daquan Jones at defensive tackle, and Matt Milano, and of course Trey White. Losing those three is really huge because you're losing at every level of the defense, and I think there's only so much that McDermott can do in terms of scheming up against that. Having said that, I think what was encouraging was that the offense started to tick finally. So we got Dalton Kincaid involved, we got Khalil Shakir involved. So we had four good pass catchers who were all contributing. It wasn't just the Stephon Diggs show. Throw in, relatively solid running performance and Josh using his legs a little bit more, and suddenly becomes harder to defend against. Still, there are some sticking points. Still, it's not working as slick as we would like, but that was the most encouraging game we'd seen in a month. And so I think most of us are feeling a bit more optimistic. That said, we've got the Bengals coming up soon, and that's probably the bad timing with Joe Burrow getting his ankle right. But that's going to be a really interesting game now because this AFC is an absolute bloodbath, right? I mean, a win is a win, and I will take the win absolutely. I think there's a limit to what we can do on defense with these injuries, but we have to get the offense ticking to the point where it's going to outscore teams. The good news is that we know that the Bills have the capability to do it. We know that Josh Allen can do it. I thought he's statistically one of the best quarterbacks in the league still. But the really encouraging thing for me is seeing the first round draft pick, Dalton Kincaid, the tight end, really getting involved, getting that yak that we want. Very smooth route runner, and getting Khalil Shakir involved, and meaning that defenses have to adapt for a wider range of weapons, not just Davis and Diggs. And that's a big step forward for the Bills, and hopefully that will continue.
Yeah, and I thought Kincaid was excellent. I mean, it seemed that whenever he was targeted, whenever he got the ball, he just got everything. He caught everything. And I don't know whether you've seen that famous meme of Snoop Dogg where he goes, "This mother effer don't miss." It felt like a bit like that. It was just like every time he got the ball, he just caught it. And I thought that was his real. That was probably his breakout game. I think that's the game where everyone's like, "Yeah, now this is why they drafted him, even with Knox there." I thought he's brilliant, and I think that. I'll get your thoughts on Ken Dorsey because there's a lot of pre-game in the tailgate, a lot of sort of nervousness about Ken Dorsey. The feeling seems to be a bit like back in the day where I think Dan Marino under the Jimmy Johnson era, where Jimmy Johnson appeared to be trying to move the ball away from Dan Marino and try and run the ball more, and therefore limits of Dan Marino's strength. And it feels like with this is what I got from the Bills Mafia. Having you guys watching week in week out is that obviously we are using Josh Allen use his legs a lot less, and people think that's basically moving his biggest strength. I mean, I still think his biggest strength probably is his arm strength. I think not many players can hit a ball as deep and as fast and deep as him. But what's your take on Ken Dorsey? Because it seems to be a lot of Bills fans aren't too happy with Ken Dorsey at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has plan A and he doesn't adapt well to plan B, I think is one of the things that I would say. It's people forget and they kind of look at Brian Dable with kind of rose-tinted glasses a little bit. Brian Dable was our OC for 4 years, but in the first couple of years, he wasn't doing especially well. Lots of people calling Brian Dable's head. I think that this season's been a big change in scheme to go from primarily 11 personnel team to a 12 personnel scheme. With one running back into two tight ends. We had to sort of go back to that sort of 11 personnel a little bit in this game because Dawson Knox, of course, is injured and he's in injured reserve probably for 4 weeks. I think you've got to look at it from a statistical perspective, and actually we're seeing the best running game we've had for quite a long time. We've seen a massive improvement in our offensive line, certainly the best offensive line we've had since the McDermott era. We're trying to integrate some new weapons. And Josh Allen was carrying a little bit of an injury. So I actually think if you look at it, a lot of Bills fans, they don't watch Bills games, right? But if you watch every team in the NFL, what you see is that there are probably 7 or 8 teams that have a really high ceiling. And on their day, they can destroy anybody. everybody. But they all have a weakness. We've seen the 49ers lose 3 in a row. We've seen the Eagles not looking quite as good, even though they've got a good record. The Dolphins looked incredible at times, but have also, lost a couple of games that perhaps were surprises. The Chiefs, lost to the the Broncos yesterday. Sorry, 2 days ago. This is kind of crazy, right? So you start looking at these, these top tier teams. All of them have a flaw, and the Bills have a flaw like everybody else. But I do think I see progress with Dorsey. I think he's getting better. I think the balance between run and pass is better. And I think that by the end of the season, this offense will be ticking. The issue I really see is on the defensive side of the ball and the injuries. Although I've just seen that we have traded for Rasul Douglas from the Packers, which is good news. So, as we're approaching the trade deadline, which is 12 minutes away. So that's a really encouraging sign because obviously Trey White is out for the season. So, interesting times.
Yeah, you mentioned the deadline. There's been some trades today. I mean, this will be out probably tomorrow morning, if not tonight. But as it stands, you've had some trades. Lions trading for Donovan Peoples-Jones, the wide receiver from the Browns. Probably the most surprising one, I'd say, was the Commanders giving away both Montez Sweat and also Chase Young. Chase Young being traded to the 49ers and Montez Sweat being traded to the Browns, which is surprising considering how bad their defense has been. They're giving away all their best defensive players. One big one with involving the Cardinals and the Vikings. Of course, Kirk Cousins suffering a season-ending injury in the Vikings, 24-10 to win over the Packers. So they've gone out and got Josh Dobbs, who was playing well for the Cardinals, and they, 1-7, 1-8 they are now, and they appear in full Caleb Williams mode. I think Clayton Tune is the guy to be starting from now, but he's gone to the Vikings to solve their problem, and they're good form, 3 wins in a row. So good for them. Other ones happening. Then the full net's been traded to you guys, the Bills. Other than that, probably the next or biggest trade, probably the best player being traded, probably is Leonard Williams being traded to the Seattle Seahawks. And also things like Rashawn Gary's been extended by the Packers. But that's the main sort of headline trades at the moment. Obviously, more things can happen. And by the time this podcast is out, probably will be a few more that we haven't even heard of yet. But moving on to further games, the Dallas Cowboys got back to a real get-right game with a 43-20 win over the Cowboys. Another scoregami, I believe it was the 1,097th unique score in NFL history. Will Levis scored 4 touchdowns on his NFL debut with a 28-23 win over the Atlanta Falcons. The New Orleans Saints beat the Colts 38-27. The Dolphins beat the Patriots 31-17, and the Jets beat the Giants by 13-10 in overtime. And other game at 6 p.m. Or 5 p.m. this week for us, with the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Steelers 20-10, and the Eagles beating the Commanders 38-31. I will get that on in a minute. Apart from that, Panthers beat the Texans 15-13. Seahawks beat the Browns 24-20. The Broncos beat the Chiefs 24-9. The Ravens beat the Cardinals 31-24. The Bengals beat the 49ers 31-17, which is their third loss in a row. And the Chargers beat the Bears 30-13. And last night, the Raiders lost to the Lions 26-14. But 2 final talking points. First one is about the AFC East. Now, Dolphins won. They moved to 6-2. Joint second, but joint same amount wins as the Chiefs in that number 1 AFC spot. But the Bills aren't far behind, 5 wins. But the Jets, they're winning games. They're 4-3. And Zach Wilson has got 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. The running game isn't doing anything great in terms of their position amongst the rest of the league. But that defense is scary. And just for you, Charlie, just how worried are you the fact that firstly, Aaron Rodgers is back dropping passes and warming up, looking like he hadn't had any sort of Achilles injury 8 weeks ago. The fact they're winning games, playing this badly, does that worry you in terms of not just this year, but next year when they get Rodgers back, that they could be literally a team to watch?
Yes, good question. I'm not as worried about Rodgers as some people. I mean, the guy's not getting any younger. It's harder and harder to recover from an injury like that. The older you get, we see this time and time again in the league. The older you get, it's just that recovery time. It's longer. We're seeing it with Von Miller. It's taken a while to get back. I just think that Rodgers has only got a limited amount of time left in him. I mean, that Jets defense is incredible, and it has our number. Let's be clear. It's really it's really got a hex over the Bills. It's gonna be fascinating. The Jets game is not too far away for the Bills. The second one, it'd be interesting to see how they adapt to that first game, which they really should have won. I do believe you can get it. you can get at Zach Wilson. And I don't think he's anything like a top tier quarterback. In fact, I think he's lucky to be got a starting position in the league at the moment. But yeah, I'm not super worried. I think the Dolphins will be the primary competitors in the long term. I think that we're seeing this offense really tick at times this year. Of course, yeah, like everybody else, there's a flaw there somewhere. But I think in terms of dominant offenses, they're the team that worry me. They're the ones that are going to be competing for the AFC East. Big weekend coming up, of course, with the Chiefs and the Dolphins playing in Germany, which is one of those teams are going to lose, which is potentially in the Bills' favor as long as they can do something against the Bengals, which I'm not necessarily optimistic about. But yeah, the AFC is a bloodbath, right? And I think that we can see the way that it's playing out. The only team I feel actually confident about being, at home in the playoffs is probably the Jags right now. They're the one where they have a pretty straightforward division, whereas us, the Dolphins, the Chiefs now are looking a little bit wobbly. It's gonna be. I actually think Miami will beat the Chiefs in Germany.
Oh,
I think,
don't
yeah.
give that kid to death. It's a good thing I'm not going, but because I'm normally that kid to death at games, but I don't know. Them off the back of a loss, I just think that it's going to be the worst time to play. Like when you played the Eagles last weekend, you know, playing them
Yeah,
after
but
a
Mahomes
loss.
is sick though, right? It wasn't a normal game. He was sick, and the question is, does he get back to full fitness and have to travel? That's not great. We've all had a bit of flu in the past, and then you get on a long haul flight, and then you've got to perform at the highest level in a different time zone. I don't know. These margins are fine in the NFL, and I think that that's going to swing it a little bit into the Dolphins' favor. That's my guess. I think it's gonna be a really interesting game. I'm fascinated to watch it because I think that Chiefs defense is decent normally. It's gonna be interesting to see how they handle the Dolphins, but I don't know. The AFC is a bloodbath, and I think it's great. I mean, any given Sunday, right? We genuinely don't know.
It's incredible. I was looking at it actually, for those who don't know, I've just started a new role with Give Me Sport, and I was writing an article today, and I was looking at the AFC playoff picture, and it's just one win between the sixth seed, and the 15th seed in the AFC. So Pittsburgh Steelers have the sixth seed; they're on 4-3, and I forget who the team was 15th, but they're on 3-4. So incredible that the NFC. There's two wins between first and second in the NFC. So to have just one win between 6th and 15th is just incredible. I think the Patriots are the team that are far worse than everyone else right now in that conference. But it really
And they
is
still beat us.
yeah.
So,
That was
times.
incredible. Good old Mike Gesicki. But it's just that literally anyone could be anyone. And I think Jenny, you could probably, with how much I think that league cannibalized itself, you could probably make the playoffs on 8-9 wins as a wildcard team. You could maybe even win a division on 9 wins. I think at this point, it's I think the AFC. I think I find it hard that I think both teams could get double wins, but I think you could easily see it'd be like a 9-8 teams win that division. But yeah, it's certainly exciting times. I think that's what we love. How good the NFL is in terms of that parity. And I think anyone can beat anyone, and no one thought the Broncos would beat the Chiefs, even when Mahomes was rumored to be sick. You thought, oh, they'll still beat the Chiefs. They'll find a way, but they.
Well, and Chiefs haven't been really ticking this year, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at who Mahomes is throwing to, he's got Travis Kelce, and then who else? It's not the quality of the Dolphins receiver group. It's not the quality of the Bills receiver group, or certainly not the Bengals receiver group. So what we've seen, I think, is the pack rising and the Chiefs just dropping down. I think this is a tough year for the Chiefs, and I know I'm not massively optimistic. I mean, on their day they can beat anybody because they got Patrick Mahomes, but I think over the course of the season they may start to we might start to see a few cracks.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of cracks, all I've been told the whole time in my 5-10 years doing podcast, or 5-10 years being an NFL fan, my last year being a podcast is that don't go FedEx Field. There's cracks in the stadium. It's falling apart. Who the hell said this? Because when I went out on Sunday, I thought it's an incredible stadium. I think it's definitely exceeded. I go in there thinking, right, I probably put the Panther Stadium out of the worst I've been to, so he's got to compete with that. But I wouldn't even put it in my worst five. I genuinely wouldn't. I thought it was incredible, and people telling me, and it was pretty much, I think, 2/3 full. Atmosphere, I've had better atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, but the atmosphere was good. And obviously that was probably because of the Eagles fans, but I just felt like it was a good experience. Now I'm fully aware that maybe it was just a one-off. Maybe it's not always like that. But I thought it was easy-ish to get to. I did get a lift, but you can get by subway no
Oh,
problem.
it's 20 minutes from the subway station. It's
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
I did
So
it earlier in the season. I mean, I think that Americans have this expectation of stadiums, especially the newer stadiums, the ones like SoFi or Levi's, of these sort of highly polished stadiums where there's lots of great concessions right behind the stands. And as Brits, we're not really used to that. We're used to kind of concrete. I mean, I was watching our soccer back in the 80s, and once you've been to, I don't know, Stockport County, Edgeley Park, you know what your expectation is from stadiums is a little different. But I thought it was fine. I mean, it's old, sure. Like the Bills Stadium is also old and a little bit crumbly, but it has character, and I think in the right circumstances can generate decent atmosphere. I mean, it's big. I would say it's a pretty big stadium, Washington. The thing that I found was kind of nuts is that when the Bills played Washington earlier in the season, I think they were 2-0. I think, yeah, it was week 3. So the Washington were on, on an upward swing, and there was 40,000 Bills fans in there, and it sounded like a Bills home game. I think there's a lot of people in that sort of greater Washington area. Well, they're all from somewhere else, and I just don't know how committed that fan base is, really. And you said it was like what 2/3 full. They've just traded Young and Sweat. I mean, they're obviously in a situation where they're kind of, all right, we say we give up this season already. Pretty depressing for Washington fans, but I mean, it seems like a new stadium's on the horizon. But yeah, I agree, it's not that bad. I mean, I even got a free beer out of it because the till didn't work, so they gave me a free beer and a free
Oh,
pretzel.
amazing.
So yeah, so that was good. But yeah, it's I don't know why. What are you really there to appreciate the stadium? No, you're there for the football. You're there for the people. I mean, that's what grabs my attention. It's not the stadium. I mean, some stadiums are louder. I've been to. Some people criticize the Superdome in New Orleans, but the atmosphere that place generates when it's loud is insane. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved Superdome.
Yeah,
I thought
that's one of my favorites.
it's not one I've really hated. The Panther Bowl, only because it rained all game and I had no shelter, but the actual stadium wasn't too bad. And obviously, it's like such a high bar that this stadium is actually a nice stadium, but it's just I think compared to all the rest, it's just it doesn't look as good. But yeah, I thought it was really good, and I was full of Eagles fans. It was when I was before those who saw my Twitter and will be on our vlog. I did get moved up to the suite in the fourth quarter, but even when I was in the first 3 quarters, it was great seats. But I was in amongst Eagles fans. I didn't see one Commanders fan anywhere near my section, and I think because it's so close to Philly, and actually I didn't realize actually the stadium's actually not in DC. It's actually I believe in Virginia.
It is. That's right. Well, you're in that sort of Maryland, Virginia, kind of DC area. But this is the other thing. I judge a stadium is can I walk to it from the downtown. Like I went to Baltimore. It was great because I could just walk from downtown. Everyone said, "Oh, Baltimore's really dangerous." I thought it was fine. Certainly the areas that I saw, and I like the fact I could just walk to the stadium. Buffalo is miles away, right? It's a 45 minute car ride if there's no traffic, which is a real pain in the backside, and there's no public transport there. Occasional buses which take an hour, so you've got to drive or you got to Uber. Levi's isn't within the same district as San Francisco. In fact, they call themselves the San Francisco 49ers as a joke. It's nowhere near San Francisco.
Santa Clara 49ers.
Yeah, exactly. It's just bizarre. So I mean, one of the reasons I'm not keen on LA is like LA is a big sprawling city, and you're in Inglewood, in the middle of a sort of industrial reworking zone. It's just it's not easy to get to, and as fans, this is stuff we care about, is how can I actually get to the stadium easily, and can I get away from the stadium easily, and can I go tailgating and drinking and this kind of stuff, so I know I think as Brits we probably judge these things a little differently than Americans do. But yeah, the people that get excited about how nice concessions are, they're not our people, I don't think.
Maybe not. I mean, I do love how a stadium looks, but as you say, I think it's all about you're there to watch the game. But right. I'm a sucker for a bit of history, like a Lambeau Field or Soldier Field. I'm a sucker for that kind of stadium. But
well, let me ask you a question. What do you think of the Spurs stadium? Because that's obviously a new one. Yeah.
I didn't like SoFi because that felt too commercialized. The SoFi. I don't know whether you thought the same thing. I thought it was very
corporate.
That's what it felt very corporate, and there wasn't much atmosphere there. I didn't feel like you had that good of a football experience. Now, got to shout out Tyler. I do apologize to him because he did get me free tickets and all that, and I had a great time with him. But I wouldn't say it looks
incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks amazing, but I didn't see a game there. I just did a tour. But the one I really dislike is Levi's because that's super corporate. You know, you got this big wall of executive boxes on one side, which kills the atmosphere. So yeah, I'm like you. I like the big balls. I like somewhere that creates a good atmosphere.
Exactly. Well, that is the end of the podcast for today, our week 8 review. First of all, thank you, Charlie, for coming on.
You're very welcome.
No problem at all. And we'll see you guys, hopefully, for a week 9 preview with one of our Chiefs fans. We'll see you guys then.